Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today we're diving into a fascinating topic, the Muslim community in Singapore. This video will take you on a journey through the rich tapestry of Islamic life in this unique city-state. We'll explore how Islam first arrived on these shores, look at the current demographics of the Muslim population, and give you a glimpse into the daily lives of Singaporean Muslims. We'll also tackle some of the challenges faced by the community and discuss the sensitive topic of Islamophobia. Whether you're a history buff, a culture enthusiast, or just curious about life in Singapore, this video has something for you. So, let's dive deeper into the history of Islam in Singapore. It's a fascinating story that spans several centuries. Islam first reached the shores of Singapore and the surrounding Malay archipelago through trade routes. Arab and Indian Muslim merchants were sailing these waters as early as the 7th century, but it was really in the 13th and 14th centuries that Islam began to take root. The port of Temasek, which later became Singapore, was an important stop on these trade routes. Muslim traders would often spend months here waiting for the monsoon winds to change, giving them plenty of time to interact with the local population. They brought not just goods, but also their faith and culture. The spread of Islam in this region was generally peaceful, happening through trade, intermarriage, and the influence of Sufi mystics. It wasn't imposed by conquest like in some other parts of the world. This gradual organic spread meant that Islam in Singapore and the wider Malay world often blended with local customs and beliefs. By the time Sir Stamford Raffles arrived in 1819 to establish a British trading post, there was already a significant Muslim community on the island. In fact, one of Raffles's key allies was Tengku Hussein, a Malay Muslim prince who he installed as the Sultan of Singapore. The colonial period saw further growth of the Muslim population. Many Malay Muslims from the surrounding regions moved to Singapore for economic opportunities. There was also an influx of Indian Muslims, both traders and laborers, who added to the diversity of the Islamic community. An important moment came in 1915 with the Sepoy Mutiny. This uprising by Indian Muslim soldiers against their British officers led to increased scrutiny of the Muslim population. In response, the British authorities started taking a more active role in Muslim affairs, creating official positions like the Registrar of Muslim Marriages. After Singapore gained independence in 1965, Islam continued to play a significant role in the country's social and political landscape. The government established institutions like the Islamic Religious Council of Singapore, MUIS, to administer Muslim affairs. Today, Islam in Singapore reflects this long and complex history. It's a faith that's deeply rooted in the region's past, but also constantly adapting to the realities of a modern, multi-ethnic city-state. It's worth noting that this history is intertwined with the broader story of Islam in Southeast Asia. Singapore's experience can't be fully understood without considering developments in neighboring countries like Malaysia and Indonesia. This historical background really sets the stage for understanding the current situation of Muslims in Singapore. It helps explain the community's deep roots, its diversity, and some of the unique challenges it faces in balancing tradition with modernity. Let us now look at the numbers and demographics of Muslims in Singapore. This is based on the most recent data I have, but keep in mind that exact figures can change over time. As of the latest census, Muslims make up about 15.6% of Singapore's total population. In absolute numbers, that's around 750,000 people. This makes Islam the second largest religion in Singapore after Buddhism. The vast majority of Muslims in Singapore are Sunni, following the Shafi'i school of Islamic jurisprudence. This is typical for Southeast Asian Muslims. When it comes to the Sunni-Shia split, it's a bit tricky to get exact numbers because Singapore doesn't officially track this. However, estimates suggest that Shias make up less than 1% of the Muslim population in Singapore. We're probably talking about just a few thousand people at most. In terms of ethnicity, about 99% of Malays in Singapore are Muslim. Malays make up the largest ethnic group among Singaporean Muslims, accounting for about 80% of the Muslim population. The next largest group is Indian Muslims, who make up about 13% of Singaporean Muslims. The remaining 7% includes a mix of other ethnicities, including some Chinese converts, Arabs, and others. It's worth noting that the Muslim population in Singapore has been growing steadily, but at a slower rate than some other religious groups. In 1980, Muslims made up about 16% of the population, so the percentage has remained fairly stable over the past few decades. One interesting trend is the increasing diversity within the Muslim community. While historically most Muslims in Singapore were Malay, there's been growth in the number of Indian Muslims, as well as converts from other backgrounds. This diversity brings a richness of traditions and perspectives to the community. Another important demographic factor is age. The Muslim population in Singapore tends to be younger on average than some other religious groups. This has implications for things like education policies and workforce participation. When it comes to geographic distribution, Muslims can be found all over Singapore, but there are some areas with higher concentrations. Neighborhoods like Geylang Serai, Kampong Glamand, and parts of Woodlands and Tampines have particularly large Muslim populations. It's also worth mentioning that Singapore conducts a census every 10 years, with the most recent one in 2020. This provides the most accurate and up-to-date information on religious demographics. Between censuses, there are also annual population surveys that give estimates of religious affiliations. These numbers tell us a lot about the place of Muslims in Singaporean society. They're a significant minority, deeply rooted in the country's history and culture, but also facing the challenges of maintaining their identity in a diverse, secular society. Understanding these demographics is crucial for anyone looking to grasp the full picture of Islam in Singapore. All right, let's talk about the daily lives of Muslims in Singapore. It's a vibrant community with its own unique culture and practices within the broader Singaporean context. In terms of where Muslims live, you'll find them all over Singapore, but there are some areas with higher concentrations. Geylang Serai and Kampong Glamand are historic Muslim enclaves that still have a strong Islamic character. You'll see lots of mosques, halal restaurants, and shops selling traditional Malay and Muslim goods in these areas. Other neighborhoods with significant Muslim populations include parts of Woodlands, Tampines, and Bedok. Daily life for many Singaporean Muslims revolves around their faith, but it's balanced with the demands of living in a modern, secular city-state. Many start their day with Fajr prayers, either at home or in a local mosque. There are over 70 mosques spread across Singapore, so most Muslims have one relatively close by. Work and school life for Muslims is pretty similar to that of other Singaporeans. Many work in various sectors of the economy, from finance to retail to government. In schools, Muslim students might attend religious classes outside of regular school hours. Some Muslim parents choose to send their children to madrasas for a more Islamic-focused education, though this is a minority. Food is a big part of Muslim culture in Singapore. Halal food is widely available, with many hawker centers and food courts having halal sections or stalls. There's even a halal version of the famous Singaporean dish, chicken rice. During Ramadan, you'll see bustling Ramadan bazaars in Muslim neighborhoods, selling all sorts of food for iftar, breaking of the fast. Fridays are significant for Muslims, with many men attending Friday prayers at mosques during their lunch break. You'll often see crowds of people in traditional Malay clothing heading to mosques around midday on Fridays. Community life is important for Singaporean Muslims. Many are involved in Muslim organizations or volunteer groups. These might organize religious classes, charity events, or community iftars during Ramadan. The Islamic Religious Council of Singapore, MUIS, plays a big role in organizing community activities and managing religious affairs. When it comes to clothing, many Muslim women in Singapore wear the hijab, though it's not universally practiced. You'll see a range of styles, from traditional Malay baju kurung to more modern, Western-influenced hijab fashion. Men might wear traditional Malay or Arab clothing for religious occasions, but generally dress in Western-style clothes for everyday life. Holidays like Hari Raya Puasa, Eid al-Fitr, and Hari Raya Haji, Eid al-Adha, are major events for the Muslim community. During these times, you'll see many Muslims visiting family and friends, wearing new traditional clothes, and enjoying festive meals. One thing that stands out about Muslim life in Singapore is how it's integrated with the multicultural fabric of the country. Muslims participate in national events, celebrate alongside their non-Muslim neighbors during other religious festivals, and are very much a part of Singapore's diverse society. At the same time, there's a constant balancing act between maintaining religious and cultural identity and adapting to life in a secular, multiracial society. This can sometimes lead to challenges, but it's also created a unique Singaporean Muslim identity that blends traditional Islamic practices with modern urban life. All right, let's delve into some of the challenges faced by the Muslim population in Singapore. It's important to note that while Singapore is generally known for its religious harmony, there are still some issues that the Muslim community grapples with. One of the main challenges is maintaining religious and cultural identity in a secular, multi-ethnic society. Singapore's government promotes a policy of secularism and multiculturalism, which can sometimes create tensions with more conservative Islamic practices. For example, there's been ongoing debate about the wearing of hijabs in certain professions, like nursing or uniformed services. Some Muslims feel this restricts their religious freedom, while others argue it's necessary for maintaining a secular public sphere. Another issue is the balance between religious education and mainstream education. While madrasas, Islamic schools, exist in Singapore, there's been pressure to ensure their graduates can compete in the modern economy. The government has implemented measures to improve secular subject teaching in madrasas, but some in the community worry about preserving traditional Islamic education. Economic disparities are another concern. Statistically, the Malay Muslim community in Singapore has lower average incomes and educational attainment compared to some other ethnic groups. This has been a focus of both community leaders and the government, with various programs aimed at improving education and employment opportunities for Malay Muslims. There's also the challenge of religious extremism. While it affects only a tiny minority, cases of self-radicalization have occurred, often through online influence. This has led to increased scrutiny of the Muslim community and efforts by both the government and Muslim leaders to combat extremism. It's a sensitive issue that requires balancing security concerns with avoiding stigmatization of the broader Muslim community. The halal food industry, while well established in Singapore, faces its own challenges. Ensuring halal compliance in a globalized food supply chain can be complex. There have been occasional controversies over halal certification, and some Muslims express concerns about the availability of halal options in certain settings. Interfaith relationships and marriages can be a source of tension. Islam in Singapore generally doesn't recognize marriages between Muslims and non-Muslims unless the non-Muslim partner converts. This can create personal and family conflicts in a society where inter-ethnic and inter-religious interactions are common. There's also the ongoing challenge of interpretation of Islamic law in a modern context. Issues like inheritance law, divorce proceedings, and other personal law matters for Muslims are handled by the Sharia court in Singapore. Balancing traditional Islamic jurisprudence with contemporary needs and values can sometimes be contentious. The Muslim community also faces the challenge of generational differences. Younger Muslims may have different perspectives on religious practice and identity compared to older generations, which can lead to internal community debates about tradition versus modernity. Lastly, while Singapore's multiracial policy has been largely successful, some Muslims still report experiencing occasional discrimination or misunderstanding from other communities. This might be in areas like housing, employment, or social interactions. It's worth noting that many of these challenges are actively being addressed by both the Muslim community and the Singaporean government. There's an ongoing dialogue about these issues, and efforts are continually being made to find balanced solutions that respect both Islamic principles and Singapore's multiracial secular framework. All right, let's talk about Islamophobia in Singapore. This is a sensitive topic, and it's important to approach it carefully. First off, it's worth noting that compared to some Western countries, overt Islamophobia is less prevalent in Singapore. The government has strong policies promoting racial and religious harmony, and there are laws against hate speech and religious discrimination. However, that doesn't mean Islamophobia is entirely absent. There's no major organized anti-Islamic movement in Singapore like you might see in some other countries. The government is pretty quick to crack down on any groups that promote religious intolerance, but you do sometimes see more subtle forms of prejudice or misunderstanding. Some of this comes from fears about terrorism. After 9/11 and with the rise of groups like ISIS, there's been increased suspicion of Muslims in many parts of the world, including Singapore. The arrest of several Singaporeans for alleged terror plots over the years has fed into this. It's led to some Muslims feeling unfairly scrutinized or viewed with suspicion. There have been instances of discrimination in areas like housing and employment. Some landlords have been known to refuse Muslim tenants, and there have been cases of job discrimination, especially against women wearing hijabs. These aren't widespread problems, but they do happen. On social media, you sometimes see anti-Muslim sentiments expressed. This might be comments stereotyping Muslims, spreading misconceptions about Islam, or expressing fear about the perceived Islamization of society. The government and community leaders usually respond quickly to shut this kind of talk down, but it still pops up. There's also sometimes tension around issues like the building of new mosques or the call to prayer. Some non-Muslims have complained about noise from mosques, leading to regulations on the volume of loudspeakers. It's important to note that many of these issues stem from misunderstanding rather than outright hatred. Singapore's education system and public campaigns try to promote understanding between different religious groups, but misconceptions can still persist. The Muslim community in Singapore has been proactive in combating Islamophobia. Islamic organizations regularly hold interfaith dialogues and open houses at mosques to promote understanding. They also work closely with the government to address issues of radicalization, which helps to counter negative stereotypes. The government plays a big role in managing these tensions. They've taken a strong stance against religious intolerance of any kind. There are laws like the Maintenance of Religious Harmony Act that can be used against those who incite religious hatred. The government also promotes initiatives to foster interaction between different religious communities. It's a complex situation, and views can vary a lot depending on who you talk to. Some Muslims in Singapore might say they've never experienced Islamophobia, while others might feel it's a significant problem. It often comes down to individual experiences. One thing that's clear is that combating Islamophobia is seen as important for maintaining Singapore's social harmony. Both the government and community leaders emphasize the need for mutual understanding and respect between all religious groups. In researching this topic, you might want to look into specific incidents or studies that have been done on religious attitudes in Singapore. Local academics and social organizations often have valuable insights on these issues. And of course, talking to Singaporean Muslims about their personal experiences would give you a more nuanced picture of the situation on the ground. All right, folks, that's a wrap on our deep dive into the Muslim community in Singapore. We've covered a lot of ground today, from the rich history of Islam in this island nation to the vibrant daily lives of Singaporean Muslims. We've also tackled some of the challenges they face and the complex issues surrounding Islamophobia. I hope this video has given you a better understanding of the diverse tapestry that makes up Singapore's religious landscape. Remember, this is just scratching the surface of a complex and nuanced topic. There's always more to learn and explore. If you found this information valuable and want to see more content like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps support the channel and allows me to keep bringing you in-depth looks at fascinating topics from around the world. Got any thoughts or experiences to share about Muslims in Singapore? Drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspectives and maybe even get ideas for future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.